visualize yourself doing it. You have to see that first. You can't just, sit in that hot seat. Like I was mentioning when I got thrown into the fire anchoring, yeah, it was a nervous experience, but I had already seen myself doing it, and it was like I'd already been there.
On cam ready in 3, 2, 1.
This is Unknown to Known, an on-cam ready presentation. I'm Jamie Maglietta. Today's guest started his career the way a lot of us do. Not with a big break, but with consistency and grind. He's got hustle. He graduated from Kennesaw State University with a journalism degree, spent nearly a year post-graduation without a job, and then took a local reporter gig in Savannah, Georgia, where he was a one-man band, researching, filming, writing, and editing every single story himself. When you hear that, you probably also think, wow, he sounds just like a creator now, a content creator. But this is how many in journalism start if they want to be on camera. They have to do it all themselves, which is why I like to ask traditional news reporters and commentators to join us here on Unknown to Known to help you with your journey from unknown to known online. His hustle paid off, and he made it to CNN and HLN, which was his dream. And then, like a lot of us in this industry, that dream got interrupted by a layoff. I can relate, which is why I also thought he would be a great guest. But here's where this story gets good. Instead of fading out, he pivoted to Court TV, where he's now a field reporter and correspondent. As of this recording, it's March 2026, and he has covered some of the country's most high-profile trials: the Idaho student killings, the murder of Laken Riley, and the Diddy trials on the streets of New York City. He's also a published fiction novelist, a storyteller in every sense of the word. He's someone who understands what it means to rebuild confidence after a setback and what it takes to show up on camera when the pressure is at its highest. This is Unknown to Known. And if you are liking what we're offering here, be sure to follow this podcast on your podcast platform of choice or subscribe to the YouTube channel. Now let's get to our conversation with Cody Thomas. Take us back. You graduated, you had internships, right? So you then find yourself without a job for a year. What was that like, and how did you land in Savannah?
I'll tell you, it killed my confidence for a long time because it felt like you did this thing, college, for 4 years. You were promised. I got, pretty competitive internships back to back at a radio station and a television station. So I figured I was multifaceted here. And then I graduated and had nothing set up. And so I'm sitting in my parents' house, just, what was it all for? What's the next move? And every day is going by. I was anxious. I wasn't one of those students that was like, oh, this year off after school. This is great. This is so relaxing. I was like, no, I need to do something.
Yeah.
And, so I graduated summer of 2018, July 2018. And I actually ended up getting 2 job offers around September, October-ish, right in there. But me being the Southern boy and being from down here in Georgia, I did not wanna move to Lansing, Michigan for $27,000 a year. My heating bill would have been $27,000 a year. And then 2 weeks after that, I got an offer from Erie, Pennsylvania. Mind you, I did not apply to these jobs. These were just people that saw my reel on YouTube, reached out, and of course, being a new graduate, I had to entertain the conversation. So I politely declined both of those because I felt like moving across the country for that small amount was just not worth it. And then things went stagnant. And that's when all the negativity set in. And to keep a long story short, I'm applying. I interviewed in Chattanooga, which is only about 2 hours away from where I was living. Didn't get that one, but saw the Savannah posting, applied to it, drove down there, did the whole spiel with everybody, got introduced, went out to dinner with the news director, and within 2 or 3 weeks, I had that job. So it was literally just stalking Indeed, and it was just there. And I moved down there. I actually started almost 1 year exactly from graduation. So it was just like this whole 12-month process, but made it happen. And then we got the ball rolling, and that was July 2019. So everything's going good. You're doing your thing as an evening reporter, general assignment reporter. And we know what happened in springtime of 2020 when the world shut down. So then that was a whole new introduction to a way of life. But I tell people all the time, as unfortunate as it was for me as a new journalist, that gave me story ideas for about 8 months straight. So I didn't have to worry about, coming in and pitching 2 or 3 stories in the city I'd never lived in about people that I never met. I just, how does COVID affect this? Can plumbers come in people's houses? How are people having weddings? What are the beaches doing? Can the bars open down here on Tybee Island? So it was a blessing and a curse for us news people at the time. But then in the midst of all that, Jamie, you had the George Floyd stuff going on. You had election season 2020, which I was unaware of how hot of a political city Savannah, Georgia was. I mean, I met everybody. I met Kamala Harris. I met Raphael Warnock, John Ossoff. I did a one-on-one interview with Donald Trump Jr. I met pretty much everybody except for the president and at the time, the vice president, then Mike Pence. I pretty much met every political candidate, Stacey Abrams. So it was a very eye-opening time for a young, bright-eyed 23-year-old interviewing in seminars with the head of the CDC. So within 6 months, it was trial by fire. And, I tell people all the time, I learned more in maybe 4 weeks, the first 4 weeks at my first job than I did in 4 years of college, which was insane to me. They handed me this camera and I was like, what do all these buttons do? This doesn't look like the one at Kennesaw State. You know what I mean? But yeah, it was a trialing time for a little bit, but then when the ball got rolling, it was going. And not to say it didn't have its trials and tribulations once I got in there, but it was better than sitting at home, just twiddling my thumbs.
There's a lot to unpack, but I want to point out for our listeners, you said that they found you on YouTube. So, one
Yes.
of the things I keep telling experts and individuals who really want to start going from unknown to known in this new media space is to be on YouTube. You didn't apply to those jobs. You had a reel showcasing your talents on YouTube. They
Hmm.
found you. And that's what can happen if you're listening, guys, and you're an expert in your field and you want to be noticed. Put yourself on YouTube. Please take that as a reminder. Okay. And the other thing I want to mention is like you're essentially a one man band in Savannah. And a lot of people
Absolutely.
don't realize that when you start in journalism on camera, you are doing everything from the shooting, the writing, the editing, the reporting. You are what is today a content creator before traditional media. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how that worked out? Because it is a technical hurdle many people have to overcome if they want to navigate this new media space.
Absolutely. And, that was probably the most eye-opening part because again, I interned at WSB in Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta's what market 7 in the country. And so you're seeing all the glitz and glam. And I don't know why they didn't tell us that it wasn't going to be that in a small town, whether you're in Savannah, Georgia, or Albany or Lubbock, Texas. And you get down there and you have your tripod and your camera and you just go out there and it's everything and you're in a new town you never lived in. You got to think of these stories, pitch the stories, call the people you want to interview. Hopefully they stay to schedule. You go out there, you shoot it, then you put on your film director hat and you shoot all the different kinds of B-roll and you come back and you edit it together and you do every last thing. You write everything that you're going to say, you write what the anchor's going to say. You really, I know it's, a cliche term to use, but time management becomes you know, paramount in
Of
your
course.
day. And you learn how to cut a package, a package that if you're just taking your time might take an hour and a half, but you learn how to cut that in 30 minutes because you got to make slot at 6 p.m. or you got to make slot at 10 p.m. So I leaving that job, Jamie, I left out of there after my 2-year contract and I felt like I could do anything. I felt like I could
Hmm.
talk to anyone. I felt like I could do anything in any amount of time. There was nothing I couldn't do. It makes you feel like Superman in a weird way. Like in the middle of it, you're like, man, this is a lot. It's a lot to bear. It's like Atlas Shrugged. You got the world on your shoulders, but then you do it, and it's like, oh, look at that. I didn't know I was capable of that, and it just keeps getting better and easier.
And that's the thing, it does get easier. And for those listening who are from traditional media, you may be remembering if you were an on-camera reporter that you did always have a field producer or a camera operator that would go out with you. But as budgets have been getting tightened, more and more are they called MMJs, right?
MMJ's multimedia journalist.
Multimedia journalists are being born at all these local stations. And those multimedia journalist tactics and techniques are exactly what you need if you're trying to show up online and you're on a budget. So it is great that you're able to share that knowledge. And you also talked a little bit about that mindset of
Mhm,
pushing yourself to just keep going when you felt like it wasn't going to happen. Now, a
mhm.
lot of people, they see their dream as being like the next Megyn Kelly on YouTube or, I want to be Joe Rogan. But they stop after a while because they can't see that ending and they get discouraged. Like, do you have any tips for people that because you made it. You did.
Yeah.
You got to your CNN. Now you're at Court TV. Like, what was like a piece of advice you can give people on that?
The thing I would always tell myself, it's something I heard my dad say growing up, something I heard my grandfather say. He always say, "Cody, it ain't always gonna be like this." You
Mhm.
know, and I would tell myself in the midst of the fire, some days were easier than others. Some days you go
Mhm.
to a parade and everybody wants to talk and everybody's all joyous and it's just you do your thing, you got plenty of time to cut your package
Mhm.
and everything was great. But those days when it's you gotta run around town and interview 4 different people and put it all in this one thing and then cut the post-op version, you know how it goes.
Mhm.
And, in the middle of it, you sit there, I just close my eyes and, you're in the passenger seat of your car
Mhm.
with the seat pulled all the way back because you need space to work and you haven't eaten lunch or
Mhm.
anything because you don't have time. I just always would just close my eyes like this and just be like, "It ain't always gonna be like this.
Mhm.
Someday it's gonna get better." And
And
that's
it
just what I
is.
did. That's just
Mhm.
everyone else has their own thing. It was like my woosah moment. It was just like, "Take a
Mhm.
breath, 2-year contract, there's a finish line." If you hate it, you hate it, but I didn't I knew what my dream was. I knew what
Yeah.
I wanted to get to. I never lost sight of it, and that's another important thing. You don't forget why you started, because
Mhm.
I remember in all the interviews that I was doing before then, even now, when you talk to people or your agent or whatever, you don't want people that just want to be on TV. And as a 23-year-old, I was like, "Isn't that the whole reason we're here?" As a young kid, but they want people to, love the journalism and love the
Mhm.
story, which that held to be so true
Mhm.
as it goes on. But all that to say, the advice I had was just remind yourself that you're doing this. It's not all for nothing. If you keep, head down, I know it sounds so cliche, but head down, eyes forward, keep your discipline, remember why you wanted to do it, why you still want to do it each and every day. And, for me, it just unfolded in a
Mhm.
non-traditional way. I'm sure we'll get into that in a second, but it was very non-traditional the way I got here post Savannah too.
Mhm. And I think, it does bring up a point of confidence. Like a lot of people think you have to be confident to show up on camera. But I always say that confidence builds through creating the content. Like the more you show up, the more confident you become, the more your vision becomes clear, that clarity. So why don't you just tell us more about that journey and how you kind of leapt in this journalism like you really took huge jumps in your journalism career, landing at CNN, HLN, and now Court TV. A lot of people dream of that. So how did it all work out?
Oh man, it's just, I'll keep it as brief as I can, but it's a story I tell people all the time because, when young journalists or young college kids ask me about my story, I
Mhm.
tell them I'm 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 walking proof that it could work out in the non-traditional way, but don't always bank on it. A lot of
Mhm.
luck has come my way. So anyway,
Mhm.
post grad to Savannah was very traditional. You come out, you apply, people find you on YouTube, whatever it may be. You take your first job and you start doing the thing. After Savannah, admittedly, I was a little burnt out of the local news grind.
Yeah.
Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, election season, COVID, it was just a lot and getting paid pennies on the dollar.
Mhm.
And I knew I wanted to move back up here to Atlanta where I was from. And you had Weather Channel up here as a network. You had CNN, of course, here, founded here, and all the locals. So I come back up here, and for a time, I thought I wanted to do sports. I did an interview with Bally Sports South, which is now FanDuel Sports Network. Got pretty far with them and got down to the screen test, and I went to a guy that had 8 years of ESPN experience. So I couldn't really be upset about that. But anyway, um, went on LinkedIn, was cold messaging so many different people. And one random day, so I got back here in July of 2021, and by this point, it's like September, so it's 2 months, and I still don't have anything. And now I'm back in that post grad rut. I was like, okay, I've gone down there, and I've done this 2 years of all of this, and I'm still like, what's going on here? So now I'm falling back into the thing, into the discouraged, into the negative mindset. But I get on LinkedIn, I message like 5 Warner Brothers recruiters because Warner Brothers owns CNN, for those
Mhm.
who don't know. Message like 5 of them just, "Hey, here's my resume, here's what I've done." Nice polite message, not too long because you don't
Mhm.
wanna you don't need an essay,
Yeah.
but just enough. And to this day, only
Mhm.
one of them replied,
Mhm.
and that was
That's
I
the
was like,
one.
That's the one that worked out. And, I think he was a New York City guy, and, we CNN Plus was going on, and the next let's just say that was a Tuesday when he replied. The
Mhm.
following day, I get an email from another recruiter because the first guy was like, "I'll send it out to my network, yada, yada, yada." Get an email from another recruiter, he's telling me about the whole CNN Plus deal, and, he was really selling me on either moving to DC or New York, and I was like,
Mm.
"While that sounds exciting, I really don't have any plans of doing that at this given moment."
Mhm.
"All right, well, let me do some stuff." It wasn't just like an immediate like, "Oh, we don't have anything." He was like, "Let me, pull some strings."
Yeah.
I was like, Wednesday." Friday, he's like, "Well, let's talk to this other recruiter." So we're on the 3rd
Mhm.
recruiter now for keeping up. Just to,
Yeah.
and, she is a West Coast-based woman, called her, and she told me about HLN, which at one point in
Mhm.
time was CNN too, but it's all in the
Mhm.
same building, everything under the same umbrella. And, she was like, "We have this thing at CNN Domestic as an associate producer, and we have HLN. Let me reach out to both of their EPs and, get back to you." So that was like a Friday. Monday, she comes back Monday morning, "Hey, the executive producer at HLN wants to talk to you." Set that up for, I don't know, 4 or 5 days later, do the interview, and I guess I did great because that interview was at 11 a.m. and I had the job by 5 p.m., which
Woo!
a lot of people say that could be a red flag when they hire you on the spot, but
No.
I it was a win for me.
Mhm.
And the only catch, which I got over it really quickly because I was, "Oh my god, I'm at CNN, HLN, whatever." I had to work 2 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Overnights are the best.
you give and take, but it was Monday through
Mhm.
Friday, no weekends. So
Mhm.
I quickly got over that and I bought myself a new car after about 4 months. It was a whole thing. It was a whole
Hell
celebration.
yeah.
And so now I get there, I'm doing my thing. For those who don't know, when I was at HLN, an associate producer, you're kinda like a video editor and you can write some scripts or something when needed, but
Mhm.
primarily you're editing video. All the
Mhm.
B-roll you see in the background, anything fancy they want, you're doing that, and I being an MMJ, I edited packages and stuff every day, so I already had that skill set, so this was a walk in the park.
Yeah.
So, I'm there, I promise I'm wrapping up, I promise.
No, you're good.
Uh, so from there, I'm doing my thing. That was October 2021, so we're going on for about a year. September 2022 rolls around. So naturally, you get off at 10 a.m., you come home, you
Mhm.
go straight to sleep. And so it's a Wednesday or Thursday.
It
I get a call.
all is one.
Yeah. And I get a call from my EP, woman named Melody Taylor, love her to death. She was
Mhm.
always like my
She's
work.
wonderful.
Yeah. So you know her.
Mhm.
And it's like 1 p.m. in the afternoon. So I wake up all disoriented, like, am I late for work? Like, what's going on? You're just discombobulated because that doesn't happen. She tells me about this idea they have to go to Jackson, Mississippi, because it was when Jackson was going through their water crisis, similar to Flint, Michigan type of deal. She's giving me the whole spiel. Jackson's this and this is going on, this and that, this and that. We want you to be the face of the special, just like that. No,
Mm.
I never
Probably
went to
fell in
her.
love with your voice like I do.
Well, that's what people always say. Can you believe I had this voice since I was 16?
It's
So
crazy.
imagine me in like a little boy's body, but I had this like grown man voice. It was
Mhm.
a weird dichotomy going on in high school.
Mhm.
But
So
um,
this is the big moment.
this is the moment. This is the moment. And she calls me, tells me that. And the thing about it to me is I never expressed wanting to go back on camera. Of course, like, if the opportunity came, clearly I took it. But it
Mhm.
wasn't like I was seeking it out. Hey, I did this. I have this
Mhm.
reel. Hey, do this. It was literally just her belief in what she thought I could do. And so
I
I
got
wake
chills.
up, I take a walk at the park. I'm like, just, oh my gosh, like, it's national television da da da. And the only thing that made me feel a little more, we talk about confidence, is that for this particular special, we flew there on a Friday and we did 4 or 5 packages through the weekend. None of it was live. So I was like, okay, I can mess up and it'll be okay. And we're going to edit it
Mhm.
to perfection. So I was like, okay, whew, the nerves kind of went away.
Mhm.
Come back, literally 3 or 4 packages. We're interviewing all these different people. I had my field producer with me, and I'm walking around, Jamie, and I'm like, "You mean all I have to do is show up and talk and interview the people and shoot the stuff, and everybody else takes care of everything else? This is a whole new world." I was like, "I can get used to this."
It's like vacation.
Yeah, all I have to do is show up and look pretty. That's
Mhm.
great. But
Mhm.
so we come back, and then it was a Monday. It was might have been Labor Day or something. Because remember we were off Monday. Me and the field producer were at the building working, so everyone else was off. We were there getting everything together for Tuesday morning. These packages air and it's a hit. Everyone at HLN, who's this guy? What's he doing? What's his deal? Because I like met people, but no one, I was still fresh. It's only been 10 months since I've
Yeah.
been there. And
So exciting.
yeah, it was a good time. And then so it went well and went great. And then about a month and a half later, Black Panther 2, the movie came out. That was my second opportunity. They sent me down to Atlantic Station. It was like a red carpet premiere type
Mhm.
deal. Not the celebrities, but like, people showed up and it was,
Mhm.
everyone
Mhm.
walked in, watched the movie. So the piece was interview people before the movie, watch the movie, interview people afterwards. Nice little feature, fun, feel good thing. That was my second on air opportunity. So I'm like, man, the ball is getting rolling.
Mhm.
What happens a month later? The layoff happens.
Ugh.
I was like, man, like everything was going, everything was, doing the do, and then swept right out from under my feet. And
Oh my gosh.
it was a weird feeling because yes, I was kind of hurt about it, but discouraged is not the way to describe it. I mean, layoffs come with discouragement, obviously, but it was just okay. You got a new reel now. You know what I mean? And with
Mhm.
your reels updated,
With
um,
something bigger.
with something bigger. Let's see what can happen. And I was I was still caught up in the allure of CNN, trying to stay there as a producer, and even
Mhm.
what the on air thing was. It was cool, it was great, but it still wasn't forward mind. It
Yeah,
wasn't in
yeah.
front of my mind. And so, got denied from a couple jobs, within the 2 months of my severance thing, where I still had the internal portal to look at jobs. And then, long story short, one of the colleagues I got laid off with at HLN, he used to know or he still knew the executive producer at Court TV, this woman named Carrie
Mm,
O'Connor, had her email. He gave it to me on a Monday, and I emailed her, and one thing led to another, and I had a job by Friday and started at
mm,
Court TV as the same position, an associate producer. Didn't go
mhm,
there as an on-air person. And Jamie, a similar, almost identical story.
mm.
Went in there doing my thing. Got paid a little more, just a little, a little more
Yeah.
money, but doing my thing. Didn't express any, I
Mhm.
talked about it. I was like, yeah, my interview. I was like, yeah, I was HLN because she used to be at HLN, and I was name dropping people just to,
Yeah,
boost myself
feel
up a
it.
little bit. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I did this on air
Mhm.
thing. She was like, oh, just taking heed to it. But when I went there and got in there, I still didn't express, because one thing, I wasn't a lawyer, and I knew this is
Yeah.
a niche thing, which I
Mhm.
look at myself now and I'm like, I'm doing this at a grand scale now, anchoring and whatever else, but
It's, like,
neither
great.
neither here nor there. But, went there, got there February of 2023, so about a month ago was my 3-year anniversary
Mhm.
here. And, she told me my
Mm.
first week there, she said, "I'll have you promoted by the end of the year."
Mm.
And I didn't know why she said that. I was like, "Okay." I mean, I guess she saw my resume and she knew, I guess maybe she
Mhm.
called some people to HLN, but she just randomly said that. And I was like, "Okay, I don't know what that's gonna be, but alright." Lo and behold, November rolls around, so what's that, 9 months later, 8 months later, I get promoted to writer producer. But the caveat was that no one else really knew about until it happened, was in my little promotion, rules or whatever, if they needed somebody else to go out in the field, another reporter, an extra hand, that was gonna be me. So I did my thing every day, writing the scripts and producing the show, but if something broke and all of our correspondents or whatever else weren't anywhere, "Hey, Cody, can you go, do that?" And I was like, "Alright, cool." So that's November.
So fun.
First story I did, February of 2024, Laken Riley is murdered at
Mhm.
UGA. And
But
in
that's a
the off
good story for you. Like,
Yeah.
as the crossover like a crossover story, you're from the
Mhm.
area, you have
And
been a
I
reporter,
think that's why I'm like,
it's not requiring a lawyer.
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. And I think I'm the only Georgia boy, like, actually from Georgia in the office. People have been here for
Mm.
years, but, I was the one partying at UGA back in the day, so I knew the area very well.
Mhm.
So they sent me out there. I interviewed a student, I did the whole thing, walk and talk, like, this is the area where he lived. This is
Mhm.
just showing, just the whole idea was taking viewers to the scene. It wasn't
Yeah.
any super analytical thing. It was just like, this is what it looks like. You know,
Mhm.
where could he have been? Lot like speculation, but like, people love to
Mhm.
see, like, how could this have happened? Went out
Yeah.
there, did that, pre-recorded that stuff, came back that night live in the studio with Benny Politan, and I guess it went well because 2 weeks later, I was in Orlando covering another big story for us, and then it started rolling. So that year, 2024, I went from UGA to Florida to, Western Idaho with,
Mm.
Brian Koberger, down to San Diego for a story, Kentucky for another. I was all over the place. Just, not
I
like,
love this.
every 5 or 6, it was like every 5 or 6
Mhm.
weeks. It wasn't like a consistent every day because I was still a producer.
Yes.
So doing this thing all year, I'm seeing places that, I've always wanted to go to San Diego at the time, and I finally went on the company dollar, had a great
Yep.
time. Washington State, I mean, it was all over the place. Texas, and, by the end of that year, October 2024, I was finally promoted to full-time, correspondent.
Yay.
And so now you get a full-time contract, you're doing the thing, and so this is where I get excited. So, I'm still doing, they flying me around and doing, corresponding stuff in the studio. I went to Florida, I don't know how many times, Florida's always great for crime. um, but the biggest pivot in my career, I think, thus far, and what has put me where I am for me. People can say whatever from the outside looking in, like, "Oh, you did really great on this," whatever. This is
Mhm.
my own personal thing. During the Diddy trial in
Mm.
New York, they said I had never anchored before, at a capacity like this. I did a couple things in Savannah, but it wasn't, anything
Yeah, no,
monumental.
not Diddy.
Yeah, not Diddy, not national, not network level where people
Mhm.
in who knows where can see me. And so they were like, "Cody, I'm building a following with my correspondent stuff. People love Cody on the case." They had this whole little brand. Um, so anyway, they come to me and they're like, "You and Kelly are gonna be field anchoring." She's one of our other correspondents, brilliant lawyer. She's gonna be on the ground in New York, so she's the field anchor. I'm anchoring from the studio. So she's in the field, I'm here, and we're gonna co-anchor. Like one person on the ground, I'm in the studio, we're gonna have guests and we're gonna chat. Cool, great. Here come the nerves. I'm like, all right. But at the end of the day, at least I'm like, if I start slipping up, Kelly's right there to, reel it
Mhm.
back in. If I'm not, I know how to read a teleprompter, but my main fear was talking to these lawyer guests and sounding like I know what I'm talking about, but I
Mhm.
really don't. But,
Mhm.
it's like I can make an understanding, but, they're law people. I have to
Yeah.
start making sense of I'm a TV person. I go out
Mhm.
like, when I was doing the Laken Riley stuff, that was the essence of all my stories. Like,
Mm.
take these viewers to this scene, take them to this scene, talk to people, just being a reporter, not the law part of it. So that's the real part I was nervous about, and even to this day, I feel more
Mhm.
prepared now, but it's still like, "All right, this case is a little complex, but we're gonna see how it goes." So anyway,
Yeah, and dig in.
and dig in. So anyway, we Monday comes. This is like Wednesday or Thursday before. Monday comes. Kelly's on out there on the ground. I'm in the studio. We're doing our thing back and forth. She asks a question to the guest. I ask a question to the guest. Goes great. Everything I feel wonderful. All right, cool. That's Monday. We're doing this all week, by the way. Tuesday comes. Jamie. We boot up. Everything's fine. Within the first 3 minutes of the A block, Kelly's out there and starts getting heckled by somebody on the street. Like they
Mhm.
reach their arm in the shot and do this whole thing. She tosses it back. I think we need to go to Cody right now. Whatever she said. Not you're in the hot seat now. This is your
Mhm.
show.
Mhm.
I was just thrown into it. There was no ease in. It was just like you got to take this whole hour just to you. You never done this before. You're gonna talk to
There
these
you
two
go.
lawyer guests. Here we go. Went extremely well. Well,
Mhm.
I'm better now, but at the time went extremely well at the
Yeah.
time. And talk about a confidence booster.
Mhm.
It was one of those things where like, you do something, you're like, oh, I could do it. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It wasn't just, if you felt like you could probably do it, but you might mess up here, something happens there.
Yeah.
This is like, oh, you got this. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And to me, that was the most, I don't even know a word to put on it, but it just really changed my mindset of like, oh, like you're meant to be here type of deal.
Mhm.
Rest of the week went great. Then they started having me for a fill-in anchor, and for the last 3 weeks, I've been anchoring every night at 7 o'clock. Like, I do my correspondent thing, with
Mhm.
Vinny and everything else, but I've been anchoring the last 3 weeks at 7 to 8. Friday, I did 5 to 7. I in-person guest, remote guest, high-profile lawyers,
Mhm.
all kinds of different stuff, and, sometimes I look back. I just put a reel out, yesterday. Just made, updated yesterday, new anchor reel, and I'm looking at it. It's like 4 minutes long, which is a little long, but whatever. I'm looking at it and I'm like, "Look how far you've come.
And
Like,
that's important.
look how far you've come." And there's even times, Jamie, where I'm sitting in the studio because sometimes it's just me by myself,
Mhm.
the camera and whatever else. And then the commercial breaks, I'm going over what I'm gonna say next or whatever I'm gonna do. But then I just take a moment and just like look around, you know. And it's only been 7 years this summer that I've been in my career, and it's like, look how much has happened, and it's like, how did you even get here? Like, look who they're letting do the national news here. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? But all that to say, for those following the story, you can see how non-traditional it was because 2 big breaks came just because 2
Mhm.
EPs had a vision that at the time I couldn't see. "Hey, we're
Mhm.
gonna have you do this." "Okay, I guess that's cool." Got the cool
Mhm.
EP. "Hey, what about this?" "Okay, that's cool." It wasn't like, how you climb the market ladder. Like, I go from
Yeah.
Savannah, then I go to Charlotte, then I go to Atlanta, then I go to it wasn't all that 2 and 3-year contracts, these different stints at places, which there's no knock to it, that's the name of the game. But for me, stuff just kind of
Mhm.
just crammed, it just fell in my lap. You know what I mean?
Mhm. I
And
do. I do understand. I think that that's great, and a lot of it could be
yeah,
manifestation too.
yeah, you sit, you what's the quote? You become what you think about, or something like that.
Mhm.
Whatever you constantly visualize yourself as, is what you become.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people who are seeing new media right now, and they're thinking, "Gosh, I really wanna be, that big anchor, that big time,
Mhm.
YouTuber." What he's saying is like, in the beginning, essentially, which is true, in the beginning, you're gonna do all the work. And then
Yeah.
as you start climbing, you're gonna ebb and flow and change and evolve, and then eventually you'll start to get to a point where you have support. You can level up, and it does take time, and your story can relate to those that are trying to navigate new media so clearly. But
Mm,
before I get off that topic, I wanna relate really quickly because I thought
please.
it was so interesting. Like, some people don't manifest. They don't see themselves. They don't
Mm,
think about where they wanna be in life, and I think that that sometimes stops the opportunities from falling into their laps.
mhm.
So, my first job out of college was at MSNBC. And I went to MSNBC as a intern applicant my senior year. I said, I'm graduating early, but I'm eligible for an internship post graduation due to the credits and everything. They're like, okay. And they offered me the job right then and there. So my first job out of college was MSNBC. And I wasn't on camera and I was in the graphics department and I hated it. It was horrible. Like, it was overnights.
Oh, man, yeah.
And what people don't realize is your graphics, your visual elements are so important. And
Mhm.
to me, as someone who I didn't realize at the time it was dyslexia, like I would look at something and be like, oh, that's spelt right. Nope, that's not.
Nope. About 3 letters off
Like,
there.
I wasn't really good at that. My mom corrected a lot of my college papers, and now I
Uh-huh.
know why. It was like that, "Oh, this isn't right." So I wound up with Natalie Morales and Lester Holt and all these huge names and helping
Wow.
them with, like, getting their scripts or making sure they were on camera ready in the newsroom. Seeing them, feeling them, getting exposed to their personas, I was like, "I feel like I want that." And I left, because I got offered a print reporter job in New Jersey, and I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna do that and feel it out." My first job, I made less than the car I had to buy to get everywhere. Like, and that's what
Telling
people don't realize, like, journalism doesn't pay as much. You basically are a content creator
you.
making
Absolutely.
nothing. And when I got to from there, my unconventional relation here,
Mhm.
Fox News Channel called me. I didn't apply. Fox News Channel calls me because they had an applicant turn down a job and they said, "Well, who would you recommend?" And this person said, "Oh, you should contact my friend Jamie."
Wow.
It was so wild. So now I'm reporting and I'm like, "Wait, I'm making 15,000." Like, it was like crazy money, like stupid money.
Yeah.
And then Fox is like, "Oh, come." And I wound up becoming the youngest producer there within 3 years. No, 3 months, sorry. 3 months, and I wound up producing, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh," like, running a show. And from there, I'd never said I wanted to be on air, and someone's like, "Hey, what about being on air?" And so I started to do foxnews.com, and I was doing lifestyle pieces, and I'm, like, thrown into that world, right? You're like, "Okay, it's a confidence boost, but it's
Mhm.
also a reality check," and that's what I wanna bring this point to. So, I was always manifesting and getting opportunities because I really, really prayed for them, right? It's like, "I
Mhm.
want this," and it came without me inquiring, right?
Mhm.
But when you're in those moments and you realize the exposure you have and the potential of that climb. Have you ever had that moment of like, ooh, like how much of this on camera do I want? Like I'm exposing a lot of myself on traditional media, on social media. Like, do you try to cage your private life? I guess I just wonder that, as you're growing, you're still on your journey from unknown to known among many, but you are becoming known within your niche. How much
Mhm.
of you do you share?
And it's funny because that is something that I'm actively
Mhm.
considering, like, right as I'm sitting here in this seat,
Yeah.
because this is the most exposure that I've ever
Mhm.
had. It's not like I'm
Yeah.
sitting around here with, like, 100,000 followers, I don't have that many
No.
followers, but, I think that's only because Core TV's, audience is older people anyway. But,
Mhm.
um, to answer your question, it's something I've been considering, like, I used to be just wide open, which my accounts are still open, but how am I trying to say this? I'm being more cognizant
Mhm.
of the things I share. Like, if
Mhm.
me and my brother go out and have a fun time at the Falcons game, cool, whatever, but maybe they don't need to see, the type of car he drives, especially, dealing
Yes.
with
Yes.
this whole Savannah Guthrie thing
Mhm.
recently. It has me reconsidering
Everything.
everything. Every single maybe they don't need to see what the house my parents live in look like. Maybe they can see them because, you're gonna post a picture with your parents at some point.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just a thing. Mother's Day, Father what you're gonna do that. But, just being cognizant of what you put
Mhm.
out there. And now, admittedly, Jamie, people put songs over their Instagram stories or whatever else. One of the smallest things I do now is just consider maybe I don't put the explicit version of this song
Oh,
on,
yeah, good point.
even
Mhm.
things like that, because people know these songs exist. They could be popular songs, but I don't need anybody to be like, Cody Thomas is supporting profanity or Cody Thomas is
Mm.
supporting this and that. And it's just like, a year ago, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
And it might not even be at the level that I'm boosting it up to be right now, but
But you
maybe it's
have to be,
there.
yeah,
You know,
protective. And
right.
I say this to other experts too. I'm like, if you want to be on national TV and you want to start climbing, you have to start realizing what you share can come back to you in ways, and you don't
Mhm,
want to share too much, especially if in your mind you see that end goal. I want to be like, at one point I went and I scrubbed the internet. Scrubbed
mhm.
it. Like, any photo of me that was in college, I was like, "Remove." Like, I went and contacted websites, like, even none of it was bad, but it was like, I just don't know how much of myself I want out there. Now
Mhm.
I'm older, I'm selective, I'm choosing, but it is an interesting world, and a lot of people can learn from your mindset around this when applying it to their own on-camera journeys, right? Like, trying to become known means being thoughtful. And you've spoken openly about that shift happening in the industry. And what I'm seeing, especially right now, like we're talking, it's March 2026, the war in Iran. I'm seeing a ton of war with Iran, I'll say. I'm seeing a ton of reporters becoming more of like influencers on social media. Do you feel like this is an opportunity right now for journalists to kind of get ahead of AI and really put themselves out there and bring people along for the journey and build a brand in social media feeds that might help traditional television?
I think so, because, I might sound like an old timer or something when I say this, even though I'm at the ripe age of 29. Um, I AI to me does not substitute human connection.
Mhm,
It can do a whole heck of a lot of stuff. It might get 99% of it, but it's that 1% that's gonna be like, "That's a robot, that's a human."
Mhm.
And when you see, Chris Cuomo going on to over there to Iran, or you see, Jake Tapper on a plane with his baseball cap on and not looking all, done up on TV, like,
yeah,
this is a person in a more, what's the phrasing they use in, like, economics? Direct to consumer,
correct, yeah.
fashion, versus, you sit on there, "Welcome to NBC Nightly News tonight. I'm Cody
Mhm.
Thomas." Da, da, da. No, "Hey, I'm Cody. I'm out here on the ground. I'm walking here. Look around. I'm in a t-shirt. I
Mhm.
got a ball cap on. My makeup's not even on. I just want to show you what's going on, what the feeling is here. Here's a woman that might just jump in the camera. People just, hey, but she might jump.
Mhm.
Da, 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 da. This is whatever, whatever. And it might be a totally different story than what traditional media is portraying on the broadcast. You hear
Mhm.
this from a person that's direct here on the ground who might have a scar on their face from a cinder block hitting them the day
Mhm.
before.
Yeah.
You see it firsthand. And I think that's what people are, eating up more.
Mhm.
To bring it back to core TV, I know it was still, broadcast on television and all that, but that was the whole idea of my role. Take viewers
Mm.
to the scene. We can talk
Yes.
about the scene all day and what Brian Koberger did in Idaho to those poor forest
Mhm.
students. But when I walk out there and they see Cody Thomas on the ground where the house used to be, how could he have gotten in that house? Here's a hill that's behind it. What about this? There's a house right here with you know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
you might talk to somebody out there. Do you remember anything from that night? I don't remember seeing anything that night, but I'll tell you, the whole morale of the university just like dropped immediately. You hear from the people there, you see the environment for yourself, and then you see the talent.
Mhm.
Talent, you see the human being, let me put it that way.
Correct. Yeah.
Not to put you see
Mhm,
the human there that you've gotten to used to on television, but you see them as a sentient being
Mhm.
experiencing what is happening around them versus lights, camera, makeup, script,
Mhm.
perfect voice and octaves dropped and all that stuff.
Mhm.
No, this is me on the ground. I'm telling you what I'm feeling. I'm telling you what I'm seeing. I'm telling you how
Yeah.
nervous I might be, or maybe it could be opposite. Maybe it's like, well, I'm here and yeah, I might hear some gunshots every now and then, but it's not as bad as, I thought it might, whatever it may
Mhm.
be.
But
You get
even, like, with Guthrie, like, you
right.
were covering that, right?
Mhm.
So many people are glued to the TVs, like, trying to understand, like, what's happening?
Right.
Like, and when you're on the ground and you can bring people along for the ride and really show them, like, "Here's what I'm seeing." Like, there was this one,
Exactly.
Philip Holloway, he was down there and he's an older gentleman, right? Like, so he's not as tech savvy, no offense, Phil,
Mhm.
but, like, using his cell phone and he's taking you on that journey, and I'm like, "This is what's going to sell the show." He
Absolutely.
has a show on YouTube. Now on social, he's, like, bringing people there. And the other thing that I'm noticing with, like, CNN, they're bringing more raw footage to their anchors' content. So Caitlin Collins, she'll be at the White House reporting, but you'll see the cameras and the audio, strips
Mhm.
behind her, and you'll see all the cords that had to go, to the cameras and the yellow tape to get people to avoid a tripping hazard. That type of stuff is kind of, in my opinion, helping influence people to trust and then potentially get them to see what they're really doing on TV. And I just wonder how you feel yourself being in this social media space. Like, what your thoughts are just on, like, social media and traditional media.
I obviously is moving towards social. And
Yeah.
admittedly, for a little bit of time, even though, I grew up in the social media age,
Mhm.
um, even I guess as we sit here now, the world is moving that way. But I
Mhm.
I was and there's a part of me that was like a little bit resistant because like,
Mhm.
I want to be on TV. TV's where it's at. People just turn it on channel 3 tonight. But the more, people have their cell phones. That's just
Mhm.
where the eyes are going. Think about your friends. Let's just break it down a little bit. How many people still have cable? Yeah, well, at
Yeah.
least in my friends, you know what I'm saying? Like you talk, oh, I only have Netflix. I only have yada yada. And you see that a lot of these, traditional media broadcasts are now streaming on Max. They're
Mhm.
streaming on Peacock, whatever make is Peacock is NBC, because they know that's where the eyes are versus traditional linear, prime time television. So to your point, I also very much so enjoy that raw look of
Mhm.
stuff, because to me, it kinda dismantles the glitz and glam of what people imagine television to be and shows them that this is a real job. I'm not just a pretty woman or handsome face here, talking head. I'm really
Mhm.
out here. I'm in the field. I'm doing my thing. And while they may be pretty and handsome, but they're still doing a service, I should say.
Mhm.
And here's the 3 camera people and the 8 lights behind me and all the cords that people are tripping over, whatever it may be. And here you might look over to the left and see another network. I'm not the only one here. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? You see the real behind the scenes. And what I've learned at least with my little cult of a fan base, my little Cody people, they love when I, post behind the scenes stuff.
Mhm.
Even if it's just a shot of the studio, because they don't get to see what the studio looks like. A
Yeah.
shot of the control room. That gets more of a response than me really doing my thing. If I post a clip of me, anchoring or doing whatever, it gets a bit of a response. But if I post a picture of me walking through the makeup room or walking through, or when I'm
Yeah.
out there in the field, the makeup room, that could be glitz and glam too. But when I'm in the field and post something, I'm out here at Nancy Guthrie's house. I've learned, which I wouldn't have learned if I wasn't there, that it's a dark sky community, which is why they don't have any street lights. Cause that was a big question early on. Like, why can't you see
Mhm.
anything? You learn these things, you put those things out there. And like you said, it influences people to come from the traditional linear, and maybe go to the social media. And of course, they might keep a balance of it. It's not
And vice
all one.
versa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go from the social. Well, who's this guy on social media? Let me check him out on
Mhm.
NBC or,
Yeah.
however it goes. I think a blend of it all, because there's some people that think it's just going to 100% be social media. And I was like, there's still a market for turning the TV on and
Mhm.
the ease and the convenience, because you got to think the older generation that are older than you and I, they're not gonna get on they might not even know how to get on a subscription service on their phones or whatever else. They might, a lot of my people message me and they'll be like, "Oh, I watched you in Oklahoma on my over the air antenna." I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
"That woman's not coming to, an
But
app."
that's still, yeah, I mean, that's still a driver, the over the air. I mean, that is a
Mhm.
good, and that the other thing is you are getting more of, like, the cable feel on streaming. you
Mm,
know,
mhm.
through Google Play and all these other I think it's Fubo or Fobo, I can't remember the name offhand.
Yeah, Fubo.
Yeah, Fubo.
It's a mix of
So
both, yeah.
you do get that feel, which is great.
Mhm,
I've really enjoyed talking about all of this. And, you know, before we wrap, I just wanted to get your take, you know, for someone who's sitting at home listening right now and they really want to get in front of the camera, whether it's for news or a podcast or just, you know, social media, or they're going to appear as a guest
mhm.
and they're a little worried. You know, what's one thing that you would tell them?
The one most important thing for me, well, there's 2 things to kinda caveat on what you and I were saying.
Mhm.
Visualize yourself doing it. You have to see that first. You can't just, sit in that hot seat. Like I was mentioning when I got thrown into the fire anchoring, yeah, it was a nervous experience, but I had already seen myself doing it, and it was like I'd already been there,
Mhm.
you know? So, visualize it first, but the most important thing for me, I think it's a Kobe Bryant quote, and I'm gonna paraphrase, but he said that he was never nervous because he knew his level of preparation. When you
Mhm.
aren't prepared, that's when nervousness comes in because now you
Mhm.
feel like, "Oh, I might not be good enough."
Yeah.
Think about when you went to take a test back in high school or middle school or something. That test you actually studied for, I'm like, "Oh, that language arts test, that ain't gonna be nothing."
Mhm.
But that math test you might have lacked on, "Well, I'll study the morning of," or something like that, and I ain't going in there like, "Ooh, the square root of whatever else," because you didn't prepare as well.
Mhm.
So, for me, and what I would say to people like that of all ages, early in their careers, late in their careers, they might be middle of their career, popping, doing their thing, but they might have something they're gonna do that still makes them nervous on air and things like that. Preparation. Whatever the topic is, that's what I have to do even to this day with Court TV because the law stuff, while I understand it more now in the last 3 years that I've been there, it's still not second nature. I did not go to law school. I'm not a lawyer.
Mhm.
And, every case is different. So I have to prepare to know the law in Michigan when it comes to a school shooter's parent or know what open murder versus first and second degree is. And even if other states have it, preparation, preparation, preparation. That's all I would say.
And I'll add to that because I always say you need to think like a producer. You have to
Mm,
think like a producer because a producer wouldn't go into a control room without a plan. Even
mm,
in breaking news, you know, you're always saying, okay, what do I have?
mhm,
I'm not going to air. Like, what do I have? Okay, this is
mhm,
what we have. This is what we're going with until we have a plan. Like, you need a plan. And you'll always go into the control room with a backup plan and a backup to the backup. And
mhm,
you're always preparing. And it's the same thing with showing up on camera. The more you prepare, like he's saying, the better. And the more confidence you'll create while creating the content. And one last question, you know, this is about being unknown to known. You're still on that journey,
mhm.
but what will it be to make you realize you're known? Like, what is it that will make you feel like, "I'm known. I'm
If
there."
I feel like, you get a lot of social media comments. Cody's this, Cody's that. We love to see Cody Court TV. While I know those are real people behind the screens, to me, they still just feel like internet people sometimes, just internet
Mhm.
bots. If I walk into somewhere and somebody just recognizes me out of nowhere, "You that guy from Court TV?" That's when I'll be
Huh.
like, "Oh, oh, you don't say." And maybe on not just one occasion, maybe 3 or 4. Because one person, you might have that one off that just, like, knows it.
Mhm.
But if I walk in a place and I don't know, I know this might sound cliche, and somebody like the waitress or somebody comes up or somebody comes
Mhm.
taps me on the shoulder, "Are you Cody Thomas? My mom loves you." Because if they're like
Mhm.
15, I know they're not watching me. I'm just
Mhm.
gonna be real about
Mhm.
it. You know, s "My mom and dad, they watch you every night," or "My aunt this and that." That's when I'll feel like, "Okay, you're out
Mhm.
here now." And there's a responsibility that comes with that. There's a
Yes.
certain sense of awareness, a certain sense of I guess it's all under the same umbrella of awareness. I was gonna say safety and all that, but there's a responsibility that comes with that sort of exposure that I feel.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
the things you say, people take that as law. They look at it a different way,
Mhm.
and so all of that to say, because I don't want to get rambling for another 15 minutes, but you know me, as you've
But
noticed
it's
here
like,
now.
you know, you just want that you'll feel it when you're like, "Wow, I can't, like, leave
Mhm.
my house." No.
Yeah. I don't think everyone
Everywhere
would be
I
that lucky,
go, someone
but
knows me.
or I'll say this too. If somebody like, that's just, the fun and you out in public and somebody at the restaurant recognizes you. But here's one. Here's one.
Mm.
I got one that just recently happened with this whole
Okay.
law and crime court TV
Did
thing.
it make you feel like I'm there?
It kinda did. It
Oh.
really kinda did. So, obviously, Dan Abrams owns Law and Crime.
Mhm.
I fly back from Arizona when the whole thing went down with court TV. I walk in and he's there. Of
Mhm.
course, I know Dan Abrams, ABC legal
Yeah, who
correspondent,
doesn't? Yeah.
News Nation, you know what I'm saying? Had his own show on News Nation before he, dropped off to do this full time. I walk in, shake his hand, Mr. Abrams. He automatically just, Mr. Thomas, we've heard a lot about you. I was like, oh boy, this guy that I used to watch a year ago knows a
That's,
lot about me.
oh
And then,
my,
and
you're
then
there.
about not a week ago, a week after that, I called my agent to walk
Mhm.
over things with the whole new shakeup because we didn't expect it to happen when I first hired her on a couple months ago. And she told me about a month or 6 weeks before that, Dan came to her, asking about talent that she had for Law and Crime, this and that. And she was like, yeah, this guy, Cody Thomas, that actually works at Court TV. And she told me that Dan was like, yeah, we know about him. We already like him.
Mm,
I was like, ooh, okay. I guess people actually do see me because there's sometimes I
you're
sit,
seen.
I do my thing at work and sometimes I still feel like I'm back in a journalism class doing a project that I just have to have done by 10 p.m. because that's the time
Mhm,
the show goes off. But, sometimes it's lost upon me that you're sitting here doing it, man. You're really doing
mhm.
it. You're doing what you set out to do, and people are watching, and important people are
Oh,
watching. You know what I mean? So, that one did make me feel like that. The Dan Abrams thing,
that's
I was like, "Ooh,
good.
yeah,
No, you're there. That's exciting. Well,
yeah.
congratulations, and I'm really glad you could join us. Thank you for being here.
Of course, thank you for having me. This was fun."
And if you want to learn more about Cody, be sure to click on the links in the description. I have his information down there. You can also find us both on Instagram by our names. So be sure to connect with us there because we're there. We're active. We're hanging out. We're also on LinkedIn. And if you're liking this type of conversation, I have others that are in the pipeline. We have a conversation with Connor Powell. He and I connected at Fox News Channel, and I'm excited to have him join us. He's now focused on the podcasting industry. And if you are trying to explore YouTube, I just wrapped up a series on YouTube. We have conversations with 3 other individuals that give tips on building out your YouTube. This show is all about helping you go from unknown to known. We'll be tapping people within my network to help you get over your hurdles, show up confidently online, and also learn how to do it strategically. Thanks again, and I'll see you online.